week, we're guests of the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway, who are justifiably proud of their long and distinguished involvement with the preservation movement.
Later in this programme, we shall be seeing more of this compact and well-organised railway. But first, we travel to Verona in northern Italy, to a mainline shed with a large collection of preserved steam locomotives.
This large depot houses many preserved steam locomotives alongside its working diesel and electric fleet. It's by far the largest collection of steam engines to be found in Italy at a mainline depot. Many have been restored to working order, available to run rail tours to other countries. We hoped at the time of our visit that there would be one operational locomotive, but things invariably don't go to plan. Problems forced the fire to be drawn shortly before we arrived. Nevertheless, there was still plenty to see, and it is encouraging that so many locos have been saved for posterity.
And still in Italy, we're off to see a fascinating tramway in Trieste.
The line is set on a hillside of this dramatic and impressive city. As you'd expect, the run is steep, and the unusual thing about this railway is that for the steepest section, the trams are pushed by a cable-operated support vehicle. Not far from the lower terminus, the vehicle waits for the tram to arrive. Like the Purslingberg, the track arrangement is the same, using the fully movable point system. The support vehicle has no power of its own. It's driven from the winding house by means of the cable. It does, however, have an emergency braking system for the downward journey. There's no need for coupling, as the vehicle is always behind the tram. Once the tram has backed onto the vehicle, the working gear at the top end of the cable run is put into operation, and the ascent begins. At the other end of the cable is the descending formation. The crossing point is roughly halfway up the climb. Once on top of the steepest section, the tram uses its own power and makes its way to the upper terminus. The depot at the end of the line houses what is believed to be the oldest working tram in the world. It was built in 1900 and put into operation a year later. Our last view is of this fine old machine at work.
We'll turn our attention now to some British mainline events in 1994.
The Exeter railfair, held in early May 1994, was a major attraction for enthusiasts all over the country. As well as several steam locos on display, there was a multitude of modern motive power, including some preserved items.
Seven down here. I think you cross over and get over there, so we
There was plenty to see here, and some unusual activities in which the visitors could participate. All age groups were catered for, and the fine weather brought people along in their hundreds. There was a special excursion to and from the railfair, using an unusual combination of modern motive power. A highlight of the railfair was the running of two steam-hauled mainline excursions. They were in the capable hands of standard tank locomotives number 80079 and 80080. These engines were built at Brighton in the early 1950s under the direction of British Railways. They were a useful form of motive power, but their working lives were very short due to the rapid introduction of diesels. However, several of the class had a stay of execution thanks to the preservation movement. They still are at work at preservation centres and on the main line. The first run was made from Exeter to Barnstable and return. Here we see the train departing with the loco at the front and the rear. Next day, the run was from Exeter to Paynton, giving a chance for some classic shots by the sea at Dawlish. fairs are organised throughout the year, and the change in ownership of Britain's railway seems to have done nothing to have altered their frequency and their popularity.
This short branch line from Keighley to Oxenhope was an obvious early candidate for preservation. This delightful line is one of the few to have been saved in its entirety. However, it's only 5 miles in length, and we discovered the reason why.
Graham Mitchell, you're the chairman of the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway Preservation Society, and you're running a very tight ship here. What is the story of this line? Because it ends in the middle of nowhere. Why does it end here instead of buffer stops?
Well, it's very much a community railway, Bob. The line was built by mill owners and quarry owners and landowners in the 1860s because they needed a link down to Keighley and the Aire Valley line. The mills in the valley had originally been water power. By the middle of the 19th century, of course, the big steam boilers were being put into the mills, and a steady supply and a reliable supply of coal was needed. So the mill owners got together, formed the company, and built the line, and it opened in 1867. It gave them a reliable supply of coal, and it enabled them to send their manufactures out. And it didn't go any further that way, because that is Lancashire over there, and no good solid Yorkshire woolen man is going to send his goods into Lancashire. He's going to send it the other way, down to Bradford, which was the great woolen capital. So there was never any need for the line to be longer than 5 miles, and it never needed to go further than Oxenhope.
And when it was closed, you took it over, and you're running end to end,
Yes.
although you're connected to the mainline system at Keighley, are you not?
We're very proud of the fact that we preserved a complete branch line. In fact, we've probably got the only complete branch line in British preservation structure now. Yes, the British Rail closed the line at the end of 1961. It was an accountant's move, of course. It was said not to be making money, but it fed passengers into the main line. We immediately formed a preservation society in March '62. Bob Cryer was the great driving force at that time, and we've sadly just lost Bob, of course. And we reopened in '68. It was 6 years before we could reopen, and those were the wilderness years. It was very difficult at that time. See, there were so few other preserved railways, and we really had no blueprint to go on. We had to make our own way and make our own mistakes. We are very, very keen here on recreating the whole infrastructure of a railway, not just shiny engines pottering up and down an exercise yard. We have preserved here a complete railway, with the stations, the gardens, the gas, the trackside facilities, signalling, as well as the trains which run upon them. So when people come here, we want them to experience a complete railway as it would have been in the old company days.
The railway has enjoyed much fame in recent times thanks to the film companies.
Oakworth Station on the Keighley and Worth Valley is quite a romantic station. It was a station that was used for the famous railway children, both in black and white and subsequently in colour. And over here is the porter's cottage.
A truly authentic atmosphere and a superb quality of service are the main attractions here. And the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway is certain to be a major pioneer in railway preservation for many years to come. The Indian subcontinent has always provided a wealth and diversity of steam, both working and preserved. In India itself, working mainline steam will soon be coming to an end. So in 1994 we paid a visit to this fascinating country to see some of the last steam locomotives still in active service.
Our first port of call was at Jalandhar in the central Punjab, 100 miles south of Amritsar. Here, at first light, there was plenty of atmosphere with early morning departures and activity around the shed. At the depot, it was possible to see a fine old steam crane at work. Built in Britain by Cowans, it's still going strong. The Class WLs featured here were built with a 17-ton axle loading for secondary routes, and 104 were built in 2 batches. The first was from the Balkan foundry Newton-le-Willows in 1955, and the second being built by the Chittaranjan Local Works in West Bengal right up to 1968. They were built on a similar design to the bullet-nosed Class WPs, which we'll see shortly. Jalandhar has no allocation of its own, but services locos from Amritsar, Ludhiana and Firozpur. The departures continue throughout the day, mainly destined for Hoshiarpur. On now to Rajmundry and our first sight of the famous WPs. Also to be seen were the 282 Class WGs. All the locos were employed on mainline duties between Calcutta and Madras. The Class WP were built from World War II onwards and were inspired by locos received from the USA. They had high-efficiency boilers and bar frames and were designed to run at high speed on bad track work. The first locos were built by Baldwin and then subsequently by other builders until 1967. Let's have a look now at the WGs. Again, built to the same design as the WP Pacifics, but with smaller wheels and the 282 arrangement. They were mainly intended for freight work. Another class of loco is now seen running on a line across mid-India over the Deccan plain between Guntakal Junction and Goa. The YP Pacifics were superb passenger locos, and 871 were built by various companies, including the North British. All these and other classes of broad gauge locos in India are scheduled to be phased out by 1996. But we hope to bring you more of these classic steam operations in future programs.
My cousin is now king. My great grandfather was one is descendant.
Well, that's all for this series of Making Tracks. But we'll be back soon with more English and worldwide steam at its best. And we'll also take a look at more modern forms of traction.
We'll be bringing our usual reports, but we'll also include some new items. So we hope you'll be able to join us in our next series. And remember, if it runs on rails, sooner or later you'll be able to see it on Making Tracks. So until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.